The incident occurred on March 27, 1982. Donald Whelner, along with his two sons Christopher and Roger, was about to lead a group of 12 Boy Scouts on a cave exploration trip. This wasn't Donald's first time caving, and although the passages in the Crooked Swamp cave system were notoriously narrow, he wasn't overly concerned. Donald was larger than most of the other participants, so he believed that if he could fit through the passages, the rest of the group could as well. The group entered the cave through a 16 by 28-inch entrance and stopped in a chamber just inside. Donald was on the eastern side of the room when he noticed several smaller tunnels branching off. Unsure which passages might be too narrow, Donald decided to check one himself. It required a tight squeeze but appeared to open into another section of the cave, so he attempted to push through. The passage measured only 18 by 20 inches, so tight that Donald couldn't move his arms backward or lift his head to see ahead. His sons followed behind him. As he moved forward, the muddy terrain made progress slippery, but Donald continued communicating with them, and everything seemed normal, until something unexpected happened. As Donald pulled himself along, he suddenly realized that the ground beneath him was dropping away. He slipped into a narrow crevice, and the slick mud prevented him from stopping his descent. His hands became trapped, leaving him with no leverage to pull himself back up. Making matters worse, the passage sloped downward at about 30 degrees, forcing him to fight against gravity. The crevice was only about 5 inches wide, and the slippery mud caused his body to sink deeper over time. Donald instructed his sons to pull on his feet, but after several failed attempts, he told them to get the other adult in the cave, Jim. Jim quickly realized that they would not be able to free Donald on their own. Donald explained that rocks had loosened during his fall and were now wedged against his body. Each attempt to pull him backward caused the rocks to slide forward, further blocking the passage. Jim exited the cave to call for help. Cave rescue specialists and police soon arrived. Because only one person could fit into the narrow space at a time, rescuers attempted to free Donald using ropes, but this method failed. Tools were then brought in to break apart some of the rocks, but the extremely tight conditions meant that hours of work resulted in only minimal progress. Donald's condition steadily worsened. He was thirsty, hungry, and exposed to extreme cold, making hypothermia a serious concern. Rescuers considered approaching him from another part of the cave system to deliver food and water, but the alternate passage was even narrower. Only two very small cavers, sisters Lynn and Nancy Taylor, were able to fit through, and even they could not reach Donald's head. Delivering supplies proved impossible. With time running out, rescuers decided to dig down from the surface to reach Donald's position. The excavation continued through Sunday and brought them close to the necessary depth, but they remained about 12 feet away and needed to dig horizontally. Meanwhile, Donald's responses became limited to faint grunts, indicating severe hypothermia. By Monday, the rescue effort encountered another major obstacle: extremely hard bedrock that could not be easily broken through. Unsure whether Donald was still alive, rescuers sent a nurse into the cave with a handheld Doppler device to check for a pulse. No pulse was detected, but this was not definitive, as she could only access his extremely cold legs. In some cases, a person's core organs can continue functioning even after circulation in the extremities is no longer detectable. With Donald's condition rapidly deteriorating, rescuers resorted to their most extreme option: the use of dynamite. Although highly dangerous, it appeared to be the only remaining solution. The following morning, they finally reached Donald's location. A doctor was sent in immediately, but Donald had already died. It took an entire day to recover his body. An autopsy later confirmed that Donald Whelner had died from hypothermia, sometime between Sunday night and Monday morning. Following his death, the Crooked Swamp cave system was placed under restricted access. The Sterkfontein Cave incident took place on September 29, 1984. A cave explorer named Nuno Gomes was exploring previously unmapped sections of the Sterkfontein Cave in South Africa. He was accompanied by his two friends, Peter Verhel and Malcolm, and together they planned to install a guideline from the cave entrance to the farthest point of the wet cave area, known as Milner Hall. The plan was for Nuno to enter the cave and place the guideline while Peter and Malcolm remained outside, assisting from the surface. Nuno submerged into the water and successfully laid the line, covering a distance of 396 feet from the entrance to the endpoint. Pleased with the successful outcome, the three decided to re-enter the cave and follow the newly placed guideline. Upon reaching the air pocket at the end, they confirmed that this section of the cave had been successfully mapped and began their return, following the line back. As Nuno led the group out, he suddenly felt Malcolm touch him. Malcolm was signaling that Peter was no longer behind them. Nuno turned back to check on Peter and noticed that he had entered a side tunnel. Nuno tapped Peter to get his attention and signaled for him to return to the guideline and exit the cave. However, shortly after, Peter disappeared once again. This time, Nuno and Malcolm assumed he had taken an alternate exit to avoid the tight squeeze they themselves used, so they did not turn back to search for him. When Nuno and Malcolm surfaced and realized that Peter was not there and still had not exited after some time, they submerged again to look for him. They searched along the guideline and nearby side tunnels but found no trace of him. After 4 exhausting hours, they ran low on air tanks, and the disturbed silt reduced visibility to nearly zero. Eventually, late that afternoon, they exited the cave and called for assistance. The fire brigade arrived, but, lacking cave diving experience, had to wait for police divers to continue the search. By evening, the silt had been so heavily disturbed that visibility remained extremely poor. The police suspended the search for the night, believing they were now likely searching for a body rather than a survivor. Unbeknownst to them, Peter was still alive. He had been diverted into a secondary tunnel, and the cave's complex three-dimensional layout, combined with the absence of a guideline, the stirred-up silt, and total darkness, made it nearly impossible for him to find his way. After attempting multiple routes, Peter discovered a small chamber and decided to wait there for rescuers. He shone his light into the water in hopes of signaling his friends, but when no one arrived for a long time, he turned it off to conserve the remaining battery power. He also tried creating noise by striking his tank against the rocks, but without success. Eventually, he became exhausted, fell asleep, and lost all sense of time. After the first night of searching, the police sealed off the cave to prevent further entry. Unfortunately, the silt took a long time to settle, and visibility remained poor. Convinced that Peter had not survived, the police chose to wait an entire week before resuming the search. On October 6th, 7 days after Peter's disappearance, they returned but again found no evidence of him. Another week later, they attempted another search, but he was still nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Peter remained alive. He endured 14 days in complete darkness, starving and having lost a significant amount of weight. In search of a possible escape, he followed a passage leading away from the small chamber where he had been sheltering. After traveling approximately 120 feet away from the water, he discovered it ended in a dead end. He then returned to his position near the water to wait once more for rescuers. Police teams continued weekend searches for 6 weeks, but Peter was never found, and the search was ultimately called off. The dry sections of the cave were reopened, while the wet sections remained closed. Volunteers later began searching for a possible connection between the dry and wet cave systems, with Nuno joining their efforts. His role proved crucial, as he discovered the connection that allowed entry into the wet section of the cave. There, rescuers found a set of footprints leading to a dead end and, shortly afterward, Peter's body. Beside him was a message that read, "I love you, Churl and Ma." It was later revealed that someone had come extremely close to finding him, having entered an opening only 100 feet away from Peter's location. An autopsy determined that he died from starvation after 3 weeks inside the cave. While Peter's decision to explore alone may be questioned, his determination to survive until the very end deserves respect.